I'm going to show you how to use heat transfer vinyl or iron-on vinyl, and this is going to be a very beginner-friendly guide. I'm going to make a little banner for a nursery, but you can replace the banner and make something like a t-shirt, a tote bag, canvas bag, many things like that. So here is everything I'm going to be using for today. Let's start with the blank. So this is going to be what I'm going to be putting everything on. This was from Hobbycraft. This was about £4. And then I'm of course going to use my Cricut. So this is my Cricut Maker 3. I then have my usual Cricut tools. So I have my Cricut mat, which is most important to you than Cricut. And then my tools. So I'm going to use my brayer roller, my scraper tool. I have my scissors and then my weeding tool. We then of course need our vinyl. So this is my Smart iron-on vinyl, and this is a dark pink that will hopefully complement my light pink well. And then I have a white everyday iron-on vinyl. We then move to our heat press. So I have my Easy Press 3. I then have my mat to match it, and I might be using some baking paper and some heat resistant tape. You may or may not need that. That is up to you. We can work around it. Let's go to Design Space and work on our design. Welcome to Design Space. Let's go over to projects on the left hand side and see what has already been made. So I'm going to search projects and I'm going to go for nursery banner, which as you can see I've done before. And this will pull up loads of different options. Obviously if you're not making a banner, you can search anything that you want. I'm going to click on advanced search at the bottom because that brings up a wider view, and that is what I prefer to look at. And if you see here in the left hand side of each image, you can see the A, and that is just the Cricut Access subscription. So this is something that I do pay extra for, but you won't have access to that if you don't pay for it, but there are plenty of free ones on here as well. If you want to search for free projects, you can click on all projects and scroll down and you can search for free. A lot of the time the free ones are mixed in anyway. This is just very Cricut Access subscription heavy at the moment. If you are scrolling and you find something you like, you can click on this little symbol and that will bookmark it for you. You can also add it to a collection. If you had a collection, for example, nursery, that you wanted to add it to, I won't for now, and I'm just going to uncheck that because this next one here is the one I wanted to make. So now I can either click on this and that will give me the option to edit a copy or make it. But if I was in this section and I wanted to find my bookmarks, I can click down here and scroll down to bookmarked. There are a few different ways to find your bookmark options. So these are ones bookmarked under nursery banner. I'm now going to click on it. And I have the option here of editing a copy or to make it. And I always go edit a copy first because I like to see what I'm working with and check the sizes. Sometimes you will have descriptions here in this section, and sometimes you will have links to what you need, how to make it, and instructions. This one is just ready for you to go. So let's click edit a copy. Everything now appears on my canvas. So this is called my canvas on Design Space. You can see it here. I'm going to scroll down. Now this is 100% at the moment. If I wanted to make it bigger or smaller, I can just use the up and down buttons here. If you look on the right hand side, you will see all of your layers and you will see this little symbol for the eye. And that means if you click it, you're going to hide everything. I'm currently going to hide the paint stroke, which is the green, and I can see everything else that's left. It might not be relevant for you now, but a lot of the time we do want to hide things. If you see this arrow, you can expand it and see the options within that one piece. For example, here's my Sleepy Panda, and then here is the name Aurelia underneath. Now I'm actually going to change this name because that's not the name I need. So I'm going to double click it and I'm going to just type in the name I want to use. Now my name is slightly smaller than Aurelia, so I don't know if it is centered to my image or not. So I can just drag it across a little bit here, or I can use the arrows on my keypad to move it across left and right, obviously up and down as well, but I want to keep it in the right place. Another feature you can do is to use the align feature at the top here, but you have to know what you're centering it to. So if I'm centering the word Emily against this panda actually goes quite wide here and here, so centering it might actually make it off center. So for now, I'm just going to go visually with what I think looks good, and I think this looks good. And sometimes I like to zoom out to make sure it still looks good when I have zoomed out as well. And I think that looks great. We know I'm actually going to be using pink for the background rather than green. Now Cricut doesn't understand what colours I'm actually using, so I can still keep the background green even though I'm cutting pink. However, it is handy sometimes to see which colours you are using. So I'm going to go up to the corner here where I can see this little green square, and I'm going to click it, and then I'm going to find a colour that best matches what I'm using, which is going to be my pink. So this is now what it's going to look like when I cut it, and I think this looks incredible. So this makes me very happy, but had I kept the green, it would still cut perfectly fine. Something very important is the attach function. The panda is currently white and my Emily writing is currently white as well. Therefore, I want them both to be cut at the same time. Because they both are attached here in this one layer, they will cut at the same time. If, however, I clicked on it and then I clicked detach at the bottom here, they would both cut separately as 2 different layers. So if I wanted to change Emily to a different colour, then I could do, and they would cut as 2 different colours. But I actually don't want that, so I'm going to go back and change it to white, and I'm going to attach both of them. So you can either highlight them, but that will also highlight the pink underneath, but that will work on different size projects. But instead I'm going to highlight on the right hand side and then click attach. When you cut everything out, you will not have a reference point of where your white sits on the pink, so it's good now to just have a quick look. So my moon just slightly comes over the top here, as do these 2 lines. Obviously you can come back at any point and have a look. So just so you can see, I can now move this 1 layer anywhere I want to. Let's go to make. So make is in the top right hand corner. It will always give you the prompt to save it. I'm not going to save this one because this was a pre-made project, but otherwise you can just click save. And it will come up with all of your options. This screen tells Cricut how you're going to cut your materials. We have the without matte option, and this is for smart materials only. And as we know, I do have one smart vinyl roll, but I also have one that is not smart, so I need to also use my matte. So I could just click on matte or without matte, and that will take me to the next screen. However, I'm going to click on multiple ways. So that's already going to tell Cricut I want to do without matte and on matte. So now we can click confirm. This is the most important section, I think, because this allows you to check what you're working with. So this is my image. Now we know this is my white image, and for me, this is not smart vinyl. So I need this one on the matte. However, it says over here on the left-hand side without matte. So I'm just going to do the drop down and I'm going to change it to on matte. So now that you can see the view changes to having the matte. If you had multiple different things on here, you can move your image around just so you don't waste space. And you can turn your image around. You can see the red lines pop up when it's going to go outside the size of the mat. And if you also have a look, there is nothing on maybe 1/2 centimetre at the top and at the side here. That just gives you a little bit of space. So this, for example, might be better because I feel like I'll waste less vinyl. Whereas if I kept it here, it's going to be a slightly bigger design. So 14 centimetres there versus 13 centimetres. So we want to save vinyl. So I've just moved it so I can save vinyl. So I'm just going to double check here on the left hand side. I've got my white, I've got on matte, and I've got my matte size. And then I've got one copy. The most important thing you need to do with everyday iron on vinyl is to mirror your design. I've clicked it and it's mirrored it, so it's changed it around. You will get a prompt later on, but it's easier to change it now because I find sometimes if you do the prompt later on, it doesn't actually mirror your design. Now I'm going to scroll down and see the second image, so I'm going to click on it here, and this is my pink image. And again, if I want to, I can move it and change the orientation, especially if I have a certain size of vinyl remaining. Here, this one is without matte, and we also want to mirror it. I know this is a squiggle, so it might not matter, but we want to mirror it. Now we're going to continue on the bottom. It now says to connect my maker through, which I've already synced because I've used it many, many times before, so I'm just going to turn it on now. This is the next screen that will appear, but just be careful here because I was last on my pink screen, so on the left-hand side, this one pops up on the pink screen, but you might think it's actually the white screen because that one's first. So my white screen is going to be my matte. This is my everyday iron-on vinyl, so this just pops up here. So I'm just going to use my iron-on everyday vinyl. Here is your most important prompt. It is mirror is turned on, which we know we've already done, but this is just a double check. It will not do it for you, which I feel is a faux pas, but we learn. And it says iron-on material is face down, which is the shiny side down. So we are going to do that, and then we will load everything. So I'm going to stop here, and then I will show you that. I'm going to make this 17 by 17 because I feel like that will give me enough of a buffer and I won't waste any vinyl. And you could cut it out with the scissors, but I do tend to prefer to cut it straight across here and then use the rest for scraps. So hopefully you can see here, this is our shiny side. So we know we want shiny side down, and just in comparison, there is the dull side. So this is shiny and we want shiny side down, and you need to make sure it matches the orientation here on the mat as well as the mat in Design Space. So I'm just going to go across. I made this a square so I don't need to worry too much about which way round it is. And you want to make sure you line it up in the top corner, or at least I do for this one because that is where my design is. But I can pop back into Design Space and I can make sure that it's the right size. So I can just hover and it will come up with the image, and the image goes to about 14 centimeters at the top and 16 at the bottom. So I'm going to make it much wider than 14 by 16. I'm then going to smooth it down with my hands. I'm going to use my brayer roller just to make sure everything is down really, really firmly so it's going to cut nicely. Now my load button is flashing, so I'm going to press it and then feed it through, or let it feed itself through, and it will start to cut everything for me. And it shouldn't take too long because it's not too intricate of a design. Once it's finished checking, it will flash up with the go button and we're just going to press go. I can check everything has cut out properly, and before I unload it, I could go again if I wanted to, but I'm just going to press unload and it will spit the mat out. To take everything off the mat, you want to flip the mat over and peel the mat away from your vinyl. So I'm going to keep my vinyl down. I'm going to peel off. It might not matter too much with heat transfer vinyl, but with every other vinyl, it will make a huge difference. So we want to make sure that that happens. And I'm just going to recover my mat. Now we're going to cut our second piece of material, and ours is the Smart Iron-On, which we know is here. But if you can't find it, you can browse all material, and you can either search for materials here or you can scroll down. So again, I've just found it in the iron-on section, and I'm going to click it and press done. Again, it tells me mirror is turned on and shiny side down. And then I'm going to go and load my Smart Vinyl. So we know again, we want the shiny side down, and this one doesn't need a mat. I'm just going to thread it through underneath the edges here. So shiny side down. If I've got a big roll of vinyl like I do at the moment, I'm actually going to loosely hold this down so it doesn't keep popping up as I go. So let's go back to design space. So we're going to click Smart Iron On, make sure the mirror is turned on, and we're just going to press the load button again. So I'm just loosely holding this down. This isn't something you have to do, but I've just found sometimes it does bunch up and it's a bit nicer to hold it down. And it will pull it through. It'll pull quite a lot more than you think through, just to make sure that there is enough on the roll, and then it will start cutting. This one should be very, very quick because it's just one big shape. So let's press go. Perfect. That was basically it. And now I can just press unload again. And I'm going to click done in design space. You can turn your Cricut off and pop it away for now if you need the space. As this is Smart Vinyl, I like to cut straight across so that it's ready to go for the next time, and I can keep everything I cut out for scraps. So I'm just going to cut that out now. I manage to use my scraps all the time, so it's definitely worth having a little scraps folder. We don't weed the shiny side, we're going to weed the back or the mat. So I just like to dig into the corner here, and then I just basically start pulling. This vinyl is usually relatively easy to peel off compared to permanent vinyl or removable vinyl. Sometimes they can be a bit tricky, but this one usually comes off really nicely. With heat transfer vinyl, I actually weed the outside first, which is the opposite of what I would do for permanent vinyl or removable vinyl. So that is our wonderful pink splodge. And then I'm going to weed the outside first because it's very hard to see which bits you are weeding, and it honestly gets a little bit confusing as to which bits you need to weed, especially if you have a slightly more intricate design. So I'm just going to peel off here, and I'm going to be a little bit slower this time because there are more bits coming off. So you can see the star there just needs a little bit of encouragement to come off. So you can see there, this bit here is starting to come off when it shouldn't. So I'm just going to press the bit that I want to keep down with the back of my weeding tool. And then I'm going to lift up and peel around it. And I'm just going to do that the same with the next piece along in case that happens again. And now I can come round to the front and I can just make sure it's going to stay down. Perfect. So that's going to weed nicely. I'm just going to carry on weeding. So I always start by just pulling off what I can first of all. And then you'll get to a point where that just comes off. And then I do the intricate bits when I can see my image a little bit clearer. And now I just need to weed on the inside of some of the little bits. I would always recommend turning it over and just double checking all of the bits are weeded as you expect them to be weeded, and also just make sure that none of the bits that you've weeded are stuck to the back because they will go onto your blank as well. We're going to press the pink first and then the white on top of it. So first we need to go into the Cricut Heat Press app. My blank is 100% cotton, so we're going to choose that from the list, and then we're going to apply our vinyl. All I've done is press the on button, and this is now heating up here. So the orange just means it's still heating up, so it's not ready to go yet. So you can see everything is still going up here. If I wanted to change it manually, I can press here for heat and use the up and down arrows, and I can press here for time and use the up and down arrows as well. So I'm just going to finish letting this heat up, and it will go beep when it's done. First of all, I need to press my blank. My blank has wood in it, so I'm just going to try and keep that out of the way, and I'm going to press my blank here. As you can see here, it's gone to 30 seconds, but I know I need to do it for 5 seconds, so I'm just going to press the play button, and I'm going to push down as hard as I can for 5 seconds, and then I'm going to take it off, and then I can press the pause button, and it's just going to reset to 30 seconds. So my blank is now pressed. That just gets the moisture out and makes sure it's nice. Now I'm going to get my vinyl. My vinyl is on here and this is on the carrier sheet, so I'm going to turn it over so everything is now smooth on the back, and this is what's going to appear. Because I don't know the orientation of my splodge, I'm just going to check in my image which way around my splodge is. So what I'm going to try to do is roughly get this wonky line here at the bottom aligned up with the stitching, and then I'm going to push it at the top here, and I just want to make sure that there's roughly the same amount of space on either side here. I would usually measure everything, but this is a splodge, so there's not really much I can do about it. I do also have my heat resistant tape, so either I can kind of hold it down here, push it down a little bit because it is a little bit sticky, and then make sure when I take my hands off it stays in place, which it roughly does now. So I could just put everything on top, or I can get my heat resistant tape and then pop that over the top. So I'll just do a little bit just to show you because the top is actually peeling off, as you can see. So I'm just roughly lining up my splodge with where I want it to go. It doesn't need to be even because it's a splodge. To be honest, I think this blank might actually be a bit wonky, but that's okay. So round one, we're going to press for 30 seconds. I'm going to lift it up. Now I can just press like this, and sometimes I do, but other times I'm actually going to put my tracing paper on top. You do not need to do this for this stage, it's just something I like to do. I'm now going to press play, and I'm going to push down as hard as I can with all my might on this bit. Perfect, that's done, so I can lift off that. Now the reason I want to do this tracing paper is because it lessens the lines on my blank. Now this is peel cool, so I'm just going to have to wait for this to cool down. It is relatively hot right now. And I'm going to think about where my wording is going to go, and I just want to make sure that the wording is straight, or at least as straight as I can get it. Because I've already put the dark pink on, it's really, really, really important to make sure you use something like baking paper over the top. You can use a Teflon sheet, I think is what everything says when it comes to Cricut, but I'm going to use this piece of baking paper. It's my trusty baking paper that I use all the time, because when we peel off this carrier sheet in a moment, we are going to put the white on top of the pink, but the white will have a carrier sheet on, and to be honest, this white carrier sheet basically is going to cover the pink underneath, so technically this one would be fine, but just to get in good practice, we're going to put this over the top, because if the pink splodges came further out, it would actually melt this, which is what we don't want, and it could ruin your iron, it could ruin your mat, it could ruin your blank, everything. Sometimes I do find that these actually don't stick down very well, so quite often the first time I do it isn't the only time I do it, even though it says to do it once. So a lot of the time I will actually peel it off if I can, and then put my baking paper over and then press it one more time. This is really, really cold now, so I'm going to peel it off, and I would suggest going really, really slowly. This is a splodge, so this one should be absolutely fine, but in case it does peel off a little bit, you want to just make sure that you don't accidentally peel it off too much. So this is wonderful. Wonderful. So that is looking really, really cool. Now I'm going to position my little, I'm going to call it a sloth, over the top. So I'm just going to try and get the Emily roughly in a place that I think looks nice. So this was roughly it because I had the moon over the top and the lines over the top. But again, this doesn't need to be straight, so this looks really good. And here, and you can see slightly this pink has come off the edge. So that is one of many reasons why we're going to use this little Teflon sheet, or baking sheet, I should say. So this one's really, really flat, so I'm not going to worry about my tape. So let's get the heat press again, and here, popping it over the top, pushing down. I'm going to push down as hard as I can, putting all my weight into it. Now I can take my sheet off, whee, and going to leave it to cool one more time. So this one has now cooled, so we can peel it off, and I'm just going to go relatively slowly so that I don't lose any letters along the way. But this so far is looking amazing. I'm really glad the dark pink worked with the light pink. There we go. I think that looks really cool, really, really sweet. Let me just show you up close so you can see. So here we go, you can just see a little bit closer there. I just think that looks really cool, and it's going to look really sweet just hanging on a little bedroom wall.